Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I just want to introduce to you a project that I plan to participate in conjunction with Vintage Blend Studios. Susanna is hosting this project. She will be kicking off the first of 9 activities, all focusing on vintage sewing techniques. Now, the premise is Susanna will introduce a new technique and there'll be a series of 9 blocks. Now, you can make these blocks into a quilt or a journal or anything else you may think of. You may just wish to use the techniques to build a piece that is a panel. There's so much you could do with this. And I've been tossing around using bright colours from the 50s through to florals. Look, I have been through so many combinations, and this is actually the second video I've filmed. The first video was lots of bright fabrics, and I did it just before Christmas, and then I thought about it all over Christmas and into the new year, and it just didn't, I don't know, it just didn't give me the wriggle room I want for creativity. It was a pre-printed panel, so in a sewing theme, and deleted the video, and this is what I'm going to do. So my premise will be built around, or my project will be built around Tim Holtz. Now I have some fabrics, one in particular, which is where it all started, this one. This is part of the Tim Holtz fabric range. There's the name of the panels, and it's from the set there. Okay, here's the details. It's been around a little while and you can still get it. So the plan is it's got a sewing theme, it's got a floral theme, and it's got the antique theme, the vintage theme. So this is why I've flipped to this. Now I've pulled out of my stash some fabrics that I believe will go with it. So I've got this one here, which is just a random printed text on fabric. I've just lost for words today. I don't know what's going on. I've also got this one here that has that fabric sewing theme about it. There's others around, but these are the first few that I picked up that sort of felt like they fit the colours and the theme of vintage sewing. So this is the plan. This is the fabric. I've got some scraps here. Now these scraps come from when I made a series within my videos about Tim Holtz. So I used some papers to make a journal, and I made, quite a few journals actually. It was a whole series built around Tim Holtz, and this was a journal cover for stitcheries to go into with that Tim Holtz grungy feel. So I've got a pocket at the front and a pocket at the back. If you want to see how I made this particular journal, I'll link the playlist for that series about Tim Holtz from last year in the description below. So that's going to house all of my little pieces. Now Susanna has 9 panels. So this actually has a lot more room to put a lot more panels in it, but I can easily get 1, 2, 3, 4 just in that signature. So, and I've got another signature and another one. So plenty of space for future stitcheries. If not, maybe Susanna may do more in the theme of this vintage sewing techniques in future dates. Who knows? Not saying that she is or not, but she's got 9 ready for us, ready to go. So the plan is to use these colours, these ticking, just to give me that nice vintagey grungy feeling. Now the other thing I want to do with this project is I want to use this piece of kantha quilt that I got from Lisa Mattock. Now she sells packs of fabrics, and in amongst it was some kantha quilt. Now I've got a floral on the back, stripes on the front. So it's quite an interesting little panel. So that's going to be the core thread through the whole project with the Tim Holtz fabrics. I think they go really well with the whole colour scheme. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to have a play with a little bit more paper and sewing together. So I've pulled out some paper that you will use to make a dress. And I've also pulled out some drafting paper. So if you were cutting a pattern from nothing, you would use this paper. It handles pins really well. It's got a bit of a waxy feeling, dressmaker's paper. So I've popped that to one side, and then also some bits and pieces that I've got in the way of vintage paper that I'm thinking I might work into my collages. So just something, I don't know, it's all very random. I don't know how much will go into the project in the way of paper, because predominantly it is a sewing, antique vintage sewing style project. I have this ribbon that was around some fabric that has a tape measure on it, and of course I've got heaps, grabbing this lace, heaps of old laces to add to the project. So that is the introduction to this particular piece. Now the first thing I want to do is start working on a background. Now I have organised that. Now Susanna's first prompt is this particular image as the start of your first panel. So we've got some wording to do, some buttons, and it can be used as a journal cover or the centre piece to a quilt. Now, my interpretation of that prompt is going to be the start of my journal, the opening page. So I've cut from the Tim Holtz fabric a panel that captures the sort of the essence of the whole journal. And I like the fact that we've got this lady here, and I'm sort of thinking that's the era that a lot of these sewing techniques would have been around. So I sort of feel like it fits. If it doesn't, I'm going to make it fit. So that's going to be the start of it. So the plan is to camphor stitch, borrow stitch the two pieces together, and underneath is just a piece of calico that fits on the first page. So all I did was I went back to my little journal cover here to the very first page, and I laid down this piece of, oh goodness, it's all pinned. I laid down this piece here so I know it covers where we need to be. I've got plenty of space to come out a little bit if I want to add some lace and things like that so it hangs out everywhere. So plenty of wriggle room. So that's my template. Now I can pop the journal away. We won't be needing that until we really get to finishing some of the actual panels. I then went through my foundation fabric, we'll call it, the fabric that's setting the scene. Now where is it again? This is that Tim Holtz fabric. And I just went around the whole piece with this, looking at what I would capture if I was to cut a section out and what that would look like and what space would be left to do some embroidery and add in our image that Susanna is working on in her first block. So I chose this. Now I won't be using this yet. That'll pop up, I believe, later in the project. Look at the blues, like you could not plan those colours better. There's a hint of floral, and we've got this underlining sewing sort of theme going through the whole project. So my first task is to pop a few pins in, and I'm going to invisible stitch this together so that I can get rid of those pins. And then I'm going to camphor quilt. Why do I keep saying that? I'm going to camphor stitch right through the whole piece so that it is just one. It'll feel and look more like one of these pieces. So let me grab a needle. First of all, I'm going to use my thread, my just sewing machine thread, and do a little itty bitty stitch on the top and then jump underneath probably about 1/2 inch just to grab everything together. So let's start in the middle with just a little stitch. So this is like the preparation prior to seeing Susanna's video, which I believe she said is coming out on the 3rd of January. So I'm just getting one of my backgrounds done. And then whatever the prompt is will feature on the background. Does that make sense? So I hope you'll join us all on the project. It should be a lot of fun. It's going to bring back a lot of memories, I think. And it'll be lovely to have a journal that I can flip open and have a look at some of these techniques. And I want to bring these techniques into the world of slow stitch that I am now. It's like when we were children, we used to do all these little projects that Susanna is going to be referring to, like English paper piecing and a log cabin from the quilting days. Well, that's all well and good in our history, but we've all evolved as embroiderers and hand stitchers. So this is going to be fantastic because it's revisiting those classics that I guess we all fell in love with. They became, you know, our childhood memories of our first time of embroidering or sewing or things like that. But as we've got older, we've evolved our style, our technique, our how do I say it? We've evolved our style. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. So what I want to do is drag that little girl that learnt those things, or that 21-year-old learning to sew different things, you know, part-time sewing, into the world that I'm in now, which is eclectic layers of techniques, layers of stitches, and of course the slow stitch element. So yeah, that's where I'm heading. I think the problem with the panel that I had chosen is it just was too easy. It was pre-printed in the theme of sewing and vintage sewing. It was bright, which I didn't mind, but it just didn't, I don't know, it just didn't inspire me. And I didn't know how I was going to layer it up and get that depth that slow stitch now does. The randomness that slow stitch is. So that's my challenge, is to drag these great old techniques into the stitching that Corrine is today. So that's the plan. Susanna was giggling because I made the video, I showed her the fabric and I was like, I'm away, I'm set. And she thought it was great. And then I sent her a message out of the blue and I said, no, I've changed my mind. I don't like it. I just don't feel that it's not me now. So there you go. It's all changed. It's too funny. But that's the fun of thinking through these types of projects, you know. What are you going to use? What elements? What colours? What style? I think half my problem was all of those books arrived from different artists around the world, and it's exactly where we are all with the Roxy Journal of Stitchery project. We're exploring these simple but complex techniques. So I sort of felt like that was just going away from where I'm at with my sewing. So yeah, therefore deleted the video, put the fabric back in the cupboard, and here I am immersing myself in the gorgeous range of Tim Holtz fabrics that are out there. I think this project too will allow me to drift into florals and do some embroidery, and yeah, it's going to be way better. Heaps better, heaps and heaps. There's all those books, that's the problem. I've been flipping through them and looking and drooling, and this is what happened. Project over, new project. At least I found out now and not, halfway through. Would have been very disappointing to end up with a project I just didn't like. And because I had that journal pre-made from that series where I focused on making a few things from the Tim Holtz world, it's worked out quite well. And these have been in my stash, and I've got to stop hoarding and use them, chop into them. So yeah, happy girl. So I've just about got enough invisible stitches, I think, to secure it. Yeah, that's not going to go anywhere. So now that's all one with those few little stitches. And now I can start working on kantha stitching this, which is good. That's going to give it a nice texture. And then from there, we'll have a look at this prompt, which is a hexagon, and see what we can do. Now, I do have some hexagon templates here that I picked up. So I'm hoping to have a little play with those and collage something through here is my thought. But the first thing is to get this background done. So I'm just going to start with a little back stitch and then pick my line and just roll that needle. It's not even caught. Okay, that's fine. I just got to lift it up and it'll catch it on the next. There'll be lace added and all sorts of trimmings, but first get your background sorted. And I was just going to do an introductory video and then the next video would be the start of it, but it took all of 5 minutes to announce my plan, and I thought, no, that's just not going to do. I got to get into it. So I thought I might as well get my background started. I love all these peachy, apricot-y colours too. I haven't done a lot of work with those. So because this has literally happened all in the last hour, my change of plans, the deletion of a video and the creation of another, I need to have a little look through. Have a look through my cottons and dig out some sorts of colours that match this. Some of those washed out blues, apricots. There's roses there that have like a, you can see the colour there. It's like an olive. So I'll go and find some threads and then they can be packed with the project ready. So there's my first row. Now, if you're not confident in your lines and you think it's a little bit all over the place, as in crooked, don't stress about it, because the more rows you do, your eye doesn't notice it. But if you're a perfectionist, and I've done this from time to time when I wanted it to be a little bit more accurate, my straight lines, there's nothing stopping you grabbing a ruler and grid up your piece with a pen that will iron out. Just don't press heavily with that pen, those friction pens, because they have been known to come back onto your work, especially if you're in a cold climate. I don't think I'll have too much trouble, but I certainly wouldn't, you know, draw heavily with the pen, because I think it potentially could be a returning issue. Now, I'm starting my next row. Now that I've got my first row in, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a case of down we go again. Takes time, but it's good. You don't have to think. And I may not even really need to do the whole piece, because if you're layering bits and pieces on there, it just gets covered. But I'm going to. It's the front page to the whole project. So I really want to take my time and put in a little extra work. It'll pay off, I believe. And it's not a very big piece. So I sort of want to make every inch count on this, because it is so small. I don't have a lot of room to create within, which is a challenge in itself, but I think it'll be all right. I think it'll be gorgeous. And having that journal cover ready to go is a bit of a bonus. I think in the videos where I made it, I was thinking of doing a study of birds in it, hence the bird on the front cover. Well, that may still happen too, because these vintage sewing techniques, there's nothing stopping a bird popping up or anything. That's just the beauty of this slow stitch projects. It's just that Susanna's giving us a prompt that will keep us focused on something. And that's the great thing about doing all of these projects with these girls, is it keeps you focused. Without it, you can get a little lost in your direction. So, yeah, I'm a bit of a fan of following along with a group, because it's a lot of fun to seeing what everyone else does. Okay, I'm just got not a lot of length here, so I'm just doing a bit of sneaky stitching to try and get that through. Thank you for all your kind comments too on the last few videos. Wow, you guys, you're a bit special. You're a bit of a great gang to hang with. Very encouraging. Especially at Christmas too. We're all sitting around watching YouTube videos, and it sort of feels like, even though we may not be doing a lot of stitching or focused on a particular project, it's like we're all just hanging out together, watching a few videos, commenting on each other's videos. It's really cool. It's been great. I feel like I've had a bit of a break, even though my head's been spinning with ideas. Okay, so I finally got that knotted. I just ran out of thread. It was a little bit too stingy on the thread. So there's my, can you see those stitches coming in there? So it's going to have a real kantha quilt feel about it, I think. Well, who knows? You know, it can change, can't it? But at least I've got my colour palette, I've got my theme covered, and Susanna's prompts are gonna keep me focused, which is a good thing. So if you would like to participate, head over to her Etsy store, Vintage Blend Studios, and Susanna has the little pack there that comes to you as a PDF file. It's very inexpensive, guys. She's a very generous lady, so she's popped it up there, and that will give you you know, the basic guidelines that she will go through. So a little bit of advance notice, if anything, so you sort of know what's coming, and you can have a good thinker then about how your project will sort of come together. So that's the plan and they're going to be monthly. What else do I need to tell you about the project? Look, I'll link Susanna below, so just in case I get the story wrong. It's probably best you watch Susanna's videos and get it all straight. But what's on the agenda for the future videos? Let's have a little look while I do some stitching here. Block 1 is the journal cover, or a centerpiece to potentially making a quilt out of all of the 9 blocks. So she's got some measurements there. She's got some suggestions. So yeah, plenty of information there. Now the next block after this is cross stitch, which will be a lot of fun. So some cross stitch. She's also given some measurements, but you know, depending on what you're going to do, you could even do a roll on a antique spool if you wanted, and follow the prompts through that way. The journal's a great idea because it sort of protects it, and having a few extra pages within it is going to be fun because there might be a prompt that I absolutely love. Let's say I really get into the cross stitch. I've got some spare pages. So because it's a monthly thing as well, you know, there's more than likely I'll fiddle around with a few of these blocks and create some more pages. The third block is English paper piecing, so that's cutting out hexagons and folding and stitching them all together to create a piece. That was the one that probably stumped me the most, with the pre-printed fabric. That was like a real 50s sort of inspired. It sort of just didn't feel like that would fit. And if I did do it, it would be very formal, very traditional, as you would expect English paper piecing to be. Or I sort of want to take it more of the slow stitch way, more free, more, I don't know what the word is, non-restricting, probably. The fourth block is cut work. Now that'll be fun. That's where we put layers of fabrics down and cut into them to reveal the ones underneath as part of the colour or the development of the design underneath. So that also was a challenge when I looked at my 50s inspired fabrics. It just didn't allow for that development of a cut work image, because it was a pre-printed sort of panel. Yeah, it just wasn't challenging enough. And then she's got here vintage sewing accessories. Well, that's a can of worms, isn't it? Vintage buttons, felt quilt pieces, lace collars, buckles, thread cards, rickrack. Boy, oh boy, my grandmother's sewing room is all of that. So I will enjoy going rummaging for some elements that can join this, and they'll have a home in a vintage sewing journal. So I'm really, really, really pleased I changed my plan at the 12th minute. What's the next one? Quilting, log cabin. Yeah. That was also part of the reason I changed, is I had a Mandy Pattullo book here, and she makes a log cabin out of bits of fabric, and she doesn't use a rotary cutter. It's just random and then stitches it, so it's all wonky, and I love it. I just thought that was so liberating from doing all those log cabin quilts back in the day. So I think that was the turning point when that book arrived and I started flipping through it. I was like, nah, gee, how do I work that into that panel? I'll have to show you the panel. I'll put it in the cupboard. It's packed away, but I should show you, and I think you'll realise what went wrong, why it changed. Like the introduction video was easy. This is what I plan to do. Here's our prompts. See you in the next video. But then I started thinking about the next video. And I'm like, well, I don't know if this is going to work for me. So I probably spent about 4 days mulling it over. And I was like, no, it just doesn't work. So that was the end of that. So then the next one she's got here is ribbon embroidery. Oh my goodness, wow, that's going to be so much fun. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy that because I don't have a lot of confidence in ribbon embroidery, so I'm going to pull out some books and force myself to learn something. And being that this fabric, the underlying theme of it all has roses with leaves, and it really does allow that to happen. And who's to say we don't pull back to some of these original blocks like this one and add some ribbon embroidery to it, so the prompts drift from panel to panel. That'd be a bit of fun. The number 8 is crazy patchwork. Now, how good is that? That's where we create a piece, a background that's patched, and then we embroider from there. So, won't that be fun? And then needle turn applique. Yep, great. So that's the plan. This is the project. Hop over to Susanna's Etsy store, grab yourself the instructions. Then Susanna will post a video. I think it's the first Tuesday of the month for 9 months. I nearly said 6, but there's 9 panels. And that will give us, you know, the ideas, I guess, the basis of what we're going to achieve. And then away you go. In amongst those instructions are all sorts of templates that are our foundation idea. And from there, it's up to you to, you know, go and play. So it should be a lot of fun. It's completely different to our Roxy project if you're doing both of those. That's real garden orientated. This is real sewing orientated. Yeah, it should be fun. So I hope you join us. And I hope you enjoy the trip down the memory lane. Gosh, remember when we were doing cross stitch? Oh my goodness. So many cross stitches. I wish I had a few that were small that I could bring into this, but they're all big pieces that really should be behind glass. But I do need to go looking through the patterns. Maybe there's a rose in amongst it, or yeah, I just don't know where this will lead, but it will be fun. Okay, I'm up the top again. Nothing like a bit of camphor quilting. Okay, so let's just knot that up. I might just jump up and grab the fabric that I did consider, because I think it still would have worked beautifully. So it might catch your eye and you might want to go looking for it. 1 second. I'm still here. So this was the plan. This is the panel. I picked it up from a Toowoomba group of girls, a mother and daughter quilt business. So very much all about sewing. And then in the centre of it was a big panel. So my plan was to make maybe a quilt. And I thought, oh, I don't need a quilt. See? It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And then there on the side are all of these little little pieces that match. So it's a panel. So it would have been gorgeous, but it just, yeah, I don't know. I think the more I read Susanna's prompts, the more I wanted to have more freedom in my creation. I felt like this might have been a bit boring for me and you. So, and then I had this pack, and I thought, oh, well, they work in colours. Then I had this little pack as well put aside. So, you know, I don't know. No, it just didn't come together for me. And I think what was the final straw is this book. Hang on one second. Textiles Transformed. This one. That was the clincher. And in there is a log cabin. I went through this with my review of my Santa books. There's a log cabin there. See that there? And it's not cut with the wheel, it's just cut freehand. There's another one. Let me just find it. How come I can never find it when I go to look at it and it's just not around? See that lace book too, that's something one day. Before I started this video, I went and had another look at it and I was like, yes, that's where I'm going with the project. That is the feel when I think about vintage sewing techniques as a child and new to the whole needle and thread. That's what did it for me. Yeah, I'm on the right track. Yep. So that was the book that took me away from that 1950s-ish colours. So yeah, welcome to Tim Holtz. Isn't it funny? You think you get a project together, you think you're heading in the right direction, and then you sort of think about it and it comes to picking up the needle or putting down that first stitch, and it just doesn't come together. Well, then that's when you stop. That's when you adjust. Something's not right. And that's what happened. You just got to go with the flow. At least the word vintage is in Susanna's project, so it gives you room to wriggle, doesn't it? You can do all sorts of colour schemes with the vintage. I'll do this row and then I might leave you in peace because you don't want to sit here watching me do this, or maybe you do because you're probably doing something yourself. And by the time you've watched this video, within a few days, Susanna has probably started the project. I'm not sure when this of mine will air, whether it'll be before or after Susanna. She's done an introduction video. So that's up there for you to get a bit of an idea of where we're all heading. I think she said the 3rd of January. So I think that will already be to air. And now you're watching me begin the project. I need some music playing. No, I don't. That just annoys me. Music playing. Because it's so hard to get good music that everyone likes because everyone's so different. I think half my problem is I have to listen to Christmas music within my business all year. So I can be a bit picky when it comes to music myself, and often I just don't play any. I just get quiet. I think I'm crazy enough in my mind thinking without having a song in there as well. My husband loves music. As soon as he sits down for breakfast, he puts music on. Loves it. But I'm not. I prefer to just, I don't know, into this. So I like a little quiet. I think it's because I'm so hectic that this is my quiet time, my quiet space, I guess. It's like when my husband's playing his pinball machines and he often asks, why don't you come and play as much, you know? I find they just ramp me up too much. I need quiet activities. I'm doing another row. How are we going? 40 minutes, 41 minutes. I'll do another row. Hope you don't mind. You would have tuned out by now if you had thought she's not going to show me anything here. I don't mind. Go off and do what you need to do for the day. And then the next video, whenever that may be during the month of January, will be the laying out of the decorative elements, working that into the title page, which will be fun. I have some lines here on this blue ticking within this image that I'm sneaking down. There we go. Just take your time with this kantha stitch, because if you're too tight, it'll get puckery at the end. And the other thing you can do is do a little back stitch here. Don't just knot it and go on your way, because that tends to get a bit puckery. If you do a little back stitch and then start, it seems to stabilize your line of thread. Okay. I've unthreaded the needle, of course I have. Rethread. Beautiful. I felt like I pulled it a little bit there, so I'm just going to stop for a minute and just make sure it's nice and flat and those threads have room to sort of sit and not pull on itself. Okay. So it does take its time, this kantha stitch, but it's well worth it. Imagine doing a whole quilt. Oh, look at this piece again. Like seriously, those stitches, it's fine thread and they would be 1/8 of an inch apart. Look at them. Just tiny. Thousands of rows, layers and layers of fabric in there. We'll have to pull it apart a little and see what we've got, because they often laid, you know, up to 6, 7, sometimes more fabrics together to get something that's quite thick to be a potential blanket. So who knows what's in underneath all this. Look, there's a repair. Look at that. Little piece has been stitched in there. How gorgeous. And it'll be lovely to work on this as well as blend it in with projects. So it'll become a background, and then I'll have backgrounds that will sort of work with it. All right, everyone, I'm going to leave you all alone now, and I'm going to take my piece and head into the lounge room, pop it beside my chair so that I can do a little bit of work on this later. That's my needle, yes. And then in the next video, we will return and visit these little hexagons, work out how we're going to create something, and then get these words in, some buttons. So yeah, maybe some floral. We'll see how we go. All right, everyone, have a lovely day, and I will see you all in the next video. And don't forget, head over to Susanna's Etsy store, grab the instructions, and there's lots of templates as well with this that you get in your pack. And watch her videos and join us on the journey. Okay, everyone, bye for now.